Hello, thank you for having me. This should be your break time, so I hope you'll find my presentation worth cutting from that. Sorry, can I just have it a bit closer? Yes. Today I'm sharing part of my PhD research in University of Reading. My study is about, this is a study with Arab readers to know about their preferences towards different Arabic typefaces. And I hope that even if you don't have a background about the Arabic script, you will find interesting aspects in the fact that the study shows how type usage can affect or even change the preferences of the readers. In a quick introduction to my research, this slide shows you how three distinguished Arabic type models three distinguished Arabic type models are being used in three document genres. So what you see on the top is a model that is used widely in books. And by model, I mean a typeface that represents very similar typefaces or typefaces that share the same design approach. So it might not be the exact typeface, but it would be something very similar. While in the image in the middle, you see a typeface that is widely used in newspapers, but on the bottom you see something that is more popular or more used on web. And just to give you a quick insight about the differences between the design features of these models, the model at the top is considered to be the closest to the traditional or original representation of the Arabic script in its calligraphic and in its early typographic form. This model has been in use since 1950s, approximately, and the second model is considered as a simplified version, which is inherited from mechanical typesetting influences, where, for example, the base form of one letter can be used for both at the middle of the word or at the beginning of it, compared to what you see at the top, where two forms will be needed to express the same letter. And this model has been in use since 1950s, late 1950s or early 1960s, like started to be commonly used, and it's still used until the current day. And the third one is more is obviously is influenced by the Latin script. And what is most obvious is the adaptation of the Arabic script to the Latin grid, the concept of the X height that you see in Latin. And it was nice to have Elena talking about this for Armenian as well, to show you that this is not exclusive to the Arabic script. So it comes out from complex cultural factors, but I'm not going to go through this. I hope I can, but time does not allow. So all these typefaces that you see here are currently being used widely in the Arab world. And the main aim of my study was to see how Arab readers, how do they see this variety or diversity, if I can see. And in order to, yes, a quick note here that the Latinized typeface model can be seen it can be found to be used relatively very recently, so somewhere between 2005 and 2010, and this is considering the usage of the model in text. So you might see it in different forms, especially in logotypes, but in text, this is the time span when the model started to be used. And so before going through the study with the readers, I needed to know exactly what is the what the typefaces that I should include in the study. And for this was done through a statistical study which examined materials from 15 newspapers, 60 publishing houses, and 70 websites from a selected region from the Arab world, which is highlighted in red here. And this helped to recognize the most used type models across these genres, the examined genres. And so each typeface that you see here represents similar typefaces or typefaces which follow the same design approach. And the statistical study did not only help recognize the most used typefaces, but also showed an interesting pattern of usage, or clarified this pattern of usage of these typefaces across the examined document genres. For example, in books here, you see that a specific model was found to be used in almost 70% of the examined books. So if you pick any Arabic book, I would most probably imagine that this is going to be the typeface or the model or something very similar to this is being used in the printed book. While if you go to newspapers, you see that another model, which is the simplified Arabic, is used in more than 50% of the examined newspapers. And here are 6 newspapers from different countries in the Arab world, and they all use the same model, but maybe only using a different weight or a copy of the original typeface. Lastly, on web, you see also a third one used on web more widely, and this is obviously an interesting pattern, which also I think it's interesting to explain why is this being done, but it's also not the focus of my presentation today. So just to go forward, based on this data that was collected, the study with the readers was started. So this started with preparing 6 mockups. So this is only one of them that shows you what type of layout was there. So 6 mockups of books designed in the same way, but with different typefaces, with the 6 demonstrated previously, and 6 newspapers, and 6 web articles. And then participants were asked to give their to give a rating for each typeface on a scale from 7 to 1 with regard to how comfortable they are to read. So the most comfortable typeface would take 7, and then they would go lower as based on how they see him. Only if the typeface is considered very annoying, it would take 1 in that case. So they would do this across the 3 document genres, and then I will ask them questions about why did they give these specific ratings. 60 participants from the Arab world, from the involved countries, took participation in the study, and this is the distribution of countries, from each country, how many participants were involved. And before moving to the results, I would like to tell you my own expectation before the study took place. So I thought that all the participants would look at the typeface at the bottom, the Latinized, and they would think they would least prefer this. But in fact, this wasn't really the case, and even the first few interviews were very confusing, because some of them actually put it highest in rating. So I wasn't sure what is going on, but when more participants were involved, the overall picture started to become more clear. And to explain to you what the case is, this is an example of 2 feedbacks received from 2 different participants. So the participant on the right was around 20 years old, and he stated that he doesn't read much in general. But the results from the left are for a participant who's above 50 and who is a frequent reader, as he stated. And you can see that there's really an interesting pattern in that there's both of them, they found all the models highly comfortable, except for the more frequent reader and the older one, who found that the Latinized really annoying. So from the beginning of the study, he said, this is out of the comparison, just I cannot read it, so and he gave it the rating 1. So this was really interesting, and it shows you how, the level of difference between two types of readers. By the way, it's mentioning that both participants were from the same country, so it shows you that it's not about region or maybe other factors, but it relates more to age maybe and frequency, or this is how I analyzed it. Looking at the results from a wider view, these are this is a comparison between feedbacks from two groups. To the left, you see the average, the rating average from 17 participants who mentioned that they read very frequently, while on the right, it's from 27 participants who mentioned that they read very occasionally. And you can see that a very similar pattern can be noticed. So most of them, they found all the models highly comfortable, except for the Latinized, which was considered like noticeably lower for the more frequent readers. And when we look at this from an age point, like based on age, it's also the same exact, or maybe it's a very similar pattern as well. So participants above 45 on the left, they gave very low rating for the Latinized model, but to the right, they were like highly comfortable with almost all of them. So it was, at the end, this was really rewarding to see how the confusion that I had at the beginning of the study started to go out when I saw the wider picture, because I am above 30 years old and I read more, so I don't consider myself like with the group at the right, maybe more to the left, but probably this explains why I had this kind of bias at the beginning. But then what is also interesting is when I asked the participants, why did you rate this? So for the readers who preferred the Latinized model, why did you rate it highly? And they would say things that are opposite to what the readers who did not prefer it say. So those would say it is comfortable, I'm used to it, or it is clear, or it's legible. The others would say it's not readable, the letters are very confusing, they can be mixed, it's not something that I used to read. So this shows you in some way more a better insight about what actually affects this perception. And in my opinion, what is interesting about this study, or throughout this study, is being able to capture this change of preference among two generations or two groups of readers, because and looking at the timeline itself can explain something. So time is kind of changing what people are used to read, and the more classical or older models were considered to be highly comfortable with everyone, while the more recent one, or the one which is also used on web, considering that it is used on web more commonly but not in the classical form, was only preferred by the younger age or those who read much on web. So this for me brings the famous quote that people read best what they read most. And it's in some way a confirmation for this code, in my opinion. For me, as an Arabic type designer, besides being a researcher, also just a final note from my own point of view is that this study brings more importance to the to informed and responsible practices in type design, because the study showed how a new form of the Arabic script, which is influenced by another script due to complex cultural factors, is becoming a norm for a specific group of readers, while it is still considered very annoying, or maybe not comfortable to a very important group of readers at the same time. But it's still being used regardless of this. And this is what I would like to end with. Thank you very much for listening.